These three simple things have the capacity to be transformative and really impact your life. And I say that because I feel like when I follow these three minimalist laws, I do way better at decluttering and collecting less and just living a bit more simply. So I figured I'd share them in case it helps anybody, but also, again, as I've been saying lately, selfishly, this is about me thinking through these concepts and reminding myself to follow these simple principles. So let's dive in. The first minimalist law to live by is to only buy something if it's meaningfully better than what you already have or if you really need it. I find myself so often tempted to buy basically a slightly different version of what I already have. Often it's like the same basic white t-shirt or a white button down or a silhouette of a certain type of jean that I actually already own. But I seem to fall into that trap time and time again because I'm always looking for that ideal version. And it's true, maybe occasionally I'll stumble across it, but along the way, I've maybe purchased a bunch of versions that aren't that much better. And I've noticed if I have this principle in my mind before I buy anything, if I just do a quick scan in my head, anytime I buy something, I need to think, is this something I need or is meaningfully better than what I already have? I'm way less likely to buy it, or if I do buy it, at least it's like, I think this is a good decision for me. And the way my dorky brain thinks about this is almost like statistical significance. Bear with me for a second. I'll continue to get to the good stuff, but I just want to talk through this. For those of you who aren't aware, when you do a scientific study, quite often you use statistical analyses to compare one condition with another. So like if you're testing whether a treatment for patients works, you might have one group that doesn't get the treatment and one that does. And you compare the averages of the outcome between the two groups. Now, sometimes that average might be slightly better for the treatment group, but you got to do a statistical analysis to see if it's statistically significantly better. So basically checking that the difference that you found is not just by chance, that it's very likely that it is meaningfully better. But then in grad school, what I learned even more importantly about was clinical significance. So even beyond statistical significance, there's the idea of how does this treatment clinically impact the patient? Like, does it actually make a difference in their symptoms, in their life, how they feel? And so that's something to keep in mind too. Sometimes you'll technically get a statistically different result, but that result is a little misleading in that if you ask the patient, they're like, I don't know, I don't feel that much better. So long story short, there's a difference between a mean difference, a statistical difference, and a clinical difference. And when I buy something new, I want it to have that clinical difference in my life. But if I'm buying, say, a new blouse, I want it to be a blouse that makes an impact. It's something I'm going to use a lot, that I'm going to reach for a lot. It's maybe something that's unlike anything I have in my wardrobe and will really fill a need. Or maybe it's something that adds a lot of interest to my wardrobe. It adds another little dimension, a little zest. It's going to impact my wardrobe in a way that feels meaningful to me. Now, the other part of this, as I mentioned, is if it fills a need. So of course you want to think through too, maybe it's not something that makes you happy for a long period of time, but maybe it's just something you honestly need, like say a new deodorant. But I think taking these two principles into account whenever I'm thinking of buying something can ultimately reduce my consumption, reduce my mistake purchases, save me money, and overall simplify my life. Because also I do spend a little too much time returning things, going over to the store, returning them, or returning packages, and that even takes effort. Now, I am for returning if you don't think you'll use something, but I also think if you ask yourself these questions ahead of time, you might also not have to do as much of that. I know it's a simple concept, but if you just commit to regularly doing this whenever you buy something, I bet you'll notice an impact. The second minimalist law is don't keep things out of obligation. And obligation can mean a variety of things. So if you're keeping something to please someone else, if you're keeping something because it makes you feel less wasteful, if you're keeping something to reduce guilt, or if you're keeping something simply because most people tend to have this in their home or tend to keep these things, or it comes as part of a package of an item you bought and you feel like you're just supposed to keep it. If those are the only reasons you're keeping something, then maybe it's time to let it go. I don't know about you, but I feel like I was socialized to want to keep things. I learned that that was more financially responsible, more thrifty, that as long as I was organized, I could handle the amount of stuff. Also, I think millennials in general grew up at a time where it was all about collecting, it was all about having more, and gradually within that, so much of our relationships with other people even got wrapped up in stuff. And also on a human level, gift giving is always meaningful, and it's one way that people have a gesture, an ability to show something to somebody else to say, when I saw this, I thought of you, and it's a way to connect beyond just words. So sometimes it's hard to let those items go if we feel like we're letting them down, or if it feels like this item is a symbol of that relationship, or if we worry, what if they ask about whether I still have it? But so often, those items don't actually bring us joy. They're actually just bringing us more guilt. So often, if it is a gift that we just never use, every time we come across it, often during a declutter, we're like, oh, I should use this more, but I don't. But I really think as far as stuff, we need to leave shoulds at the door. Like if you just don't use something and you're keeping it out of guilt or out of some kind of feeling like you need to keep it because it's the right thing to do, when it gets into this area of like morality or trying to be less wasteful when really you were probably already wasteful by getting the item in the first place, or if you're just keeping it because other people tend to keep it, it's just not a good idea, because you don't have to live conventionally. You can decide what items are important or useful to you, and you don't have to follow any strict script on what to have in your home, maybe with a few exceptions for safety items. A weird example is I once went to a friend's home who, in their main kind of living room area, they didn't even have a couch. They just kind of had a mattress thing and some pillows. It wasn't even that big, and we even just kind of sat on the floor on pillows. And granted, for me, that might not feel comfortable in the long run, but for them, it worked great. And I actually thought it was a cool space to be in. I almost envied it. Like, I thought it was really beautiful and fun to be there and sit on a pillow for the evening. My point is, that person was like, I don't have to think like everybody else. I don't have to have a couch. And I think it was a choice. It wasn't just like a financial thing. I think they really were like, I want to try something different here. I thought it was kind of fun, and it brought the group together to be kind of comfortable and have better conversation. And maybe there are cons for that person too, but they get to live the way they want to live, and there are some pluses. The third minimalist law is to build a culture of minimalism in your life. It's trying to create more brain space for these concepts, talking about these ideas, thinking about these ideas. And you can do that through social media, reading books, talking to family members or friends. I think a really great way is actually to find someone who has a similar mindset to you around this stuff, and to regularly check in on how each of you are doing, and not just in a judgy kind of way, not that you need to necessarily be accountable to each other, but in a way where you can talk through the challenges and barriers you face. Like, I talk a lot with my sister when I notice I'm starting to shop again or collect a little too much, or I'm struggling to get back on top of decluttering. I'll talk through that with her, and I'll even vent about why it's hard sometimes, or why I kind of impulsively bought something, and I'll be super open, and she'll share her experiences with that too. And somehow being able to honestly talk through the challenges and the barriers brings more clarity to me. It just makes my focus a little bit more on those concepts, and ultimately it helps. I also think another example is this YouTube channel for me. That's me trying to create more of a culture of minimalism in my life, because having a video every week where usually I'm talking about one of these concepts, it helps me stay on track. If I'm talking about it, I'm more likely to do it. And that's probably even because of cognitive dissonance, where basically it's harder for the human mind to handle when you speak one way about something, or say something should be one way but do something else. That creates this uncomfortable feeling of cognitive dissonance. But if I'm talking about something and I'm promoting something and I'm thinking about something, I'm more likely to behave consistently with those ideas. And so I think even having this YouTube channel where I can talk out what's been working for me lately, what are the strategies that have been really helping, and how can I do that more, that that kind of a mindset and having that be something I regularly harken back to really helps me stay on track. And not that I'm always on track, I'm really in it with you. You know, I'm not the type of person where my channel is me trying to look down on my viewers. Quite often, my viewers are honestly way more minimalist than I am. I am in the thick of it. I am on this journey. But I also think it's worthwhile for me to talk about the challenges I face and to think about what has been working for me. And so the more I think about it, the more books I read about it, the more I talk about it, the more likely I'm going to be to enact those concepts. So I know these 3 laws are very simple, but I truly think that when I follow them, these 3 things, I'm way better at decluttering, collecting less, and just kind of staying the course. So since I was a little long-winded, let me repeat. The 3 laws are: 1, only buy something if it's meaningfully better than what you already have or if you need it. 2, don't keep things out of obligation, whether it's some kind of emotional urge or guilt, or it's about a relationship, or it's just about an expectation that you'd have something around. Don't keep it just for those reasons. And then 3, build a culture of minimalism in your life. Carve out the time in your day to watch a YouTube video, listen to a podcast episode, read a chapter of a book, talk to a friend or family member about minimalism, and it's just going to be that much easier for you to go out and live out those principles. If any of you have laws that you live by that help you be more minimal or live more simply, I would love to hear them. I know there are others that have helped me in the past, but these 3 are 3 core ones, I think, so I wanted to share them. But I'd love to hear what helps you the most, because honestly, I am learning and I can learn from you. So anyway, that's about it. Also, if you're new here, welcome. My name's Aylin, and I make videos on simple living, minimalism, and building an empowering mindset. Sometimes I make videos on just like other topics too, or about my travels, or about handling a chronic illness, random other stuff, but mostly that's my focus. And if any of that interests you, hit the subscribe button below. Also, if you do regularly or occasionally watch my videos, hit that subscribe button as well. It's just a really nice way to support the channel. And then if you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up button. Thank you so much. If you're doing that right now, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for spending this little bit of time with me, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.